But since then, South Africa's GDP has stayed flat. In real per capita terms, our GDP today is lower than it was in 2009, 2010.
Unemployment in South Africa has gone down in the second quarter of 2022, but only very, very slightly. It still remains stubbornly high at 33.9% on the narrow definition. Joining me to discuss is Gabriel Crouse of the IRR. So Gabriel, what did you make of these numbers that were released by Stats SA yesterday?
Yeah, there is a little bit of slightly good news there. The results are also a mixed bag. The official definition of unemployment is down roughly 0.5%. The expanded definition is important to look at because that includes people who've given up seeking jobs. And that's a much higher number, sitting at around 44% now, but it's down only 0.3% year on year. So that's a tiny improvement. And that's really where we need to see a huge bounce back. South Africa is sitting with the world's worst unemployment rate on record. And that alone should, make you expect that we've got huge room to increase the number of people at work. On top of that, we had one of the worst increases in unemployment during the pandemic. Other countries have bounced back that are sort of peer competitors. We're not doing that. For example, it really is worth looking at India, Brazil, Indonesia, and countries like that, Egypt, which have seen a full-on recovery from the pandemic and are improving beyond that. We're still behind, and we were the worst to start out with. So that's all very concerning. But David, my biggest worry is the not-in-employment education or training rate. That is gone up by 2.7% year on year.
And why is that a significant number there, Gabriel?
The NEET rate, as it's known, tells us about the freshest entrants effectively into the job market. These are young people, standardly between, I think it measures between 15 and 34. This is the youngest cohort of South Africans, the largest cohort of South Africans outside of primary and early high school age. And if people at that age are not getting a job, they're not in training, they're not upskilling, they don't have a good reason to wake up in the morning and go add value either to their own lives or to the communities that they live in, they can be stuck in that pattern of behavior of effectively a kind of perverse early retirement, and pose the greatest burden to society if you wind the clock going forward, if they don't then return into the job market. And that is the hardest group to get back into the job market. Secondly, from an employer's perspective, if you have a business and people are retiring, people are immigrating, and you want to replenish your employment staff, you're going to want to look at the youth. And that pool is drying up in terms of an increased number are not getting skills and are not getting on-the-job training. So immediately, there is the danger of the social danger presented by young people out of work. And in the long term, you've got the highest cost to society and the worst possible situation for business.
And according to Stats SA, approximately 3.7 million out of 10.2 million young people, that's between 15 and 24, they are in this category, this NEET category, not in employment, education, or training. So that is a serious ticking time bomb for our society. If you think of these idle young people, no opportunity, no hope for the future, that's going to create a lot of other social pressures as well, could spill out into social unrest, for example. Okay, so what is your kind of feeling about the drivers of our persistently high unemployment rate? We seem to have structural unemployment problems. This is not just usual kind of frictional unemployment like you would see in the United States, where someone leaves a job for a few months and a few months later they have another one. This is kind of deeply embedded in the structure of our economy. What do you think is causing this stubborn high unemployment rate?
In a word, policy, domestic policy, the laws coming out of government. I expect I was not surprised by these employment numbers. We predicted them more or less, and I will not be surprised to see a lot of analysis blame the lack of a major jobs bounce back on the war in Ukraine, on high oil prices, on reduction in demand from China, our largest trading partner. And those things all matter. So does the fact that South Africa has lower inflation at the moment than many developed countries, giving us a kind of edge. So is the fact that coal prices are double what they were. The European markets are allowing a lot more coal from South Africa. It's one of our larger exports, iron ore, etc. There are opportunities and costs coming from global conditions, and they do have an impact. But whatever they are, we seem to remain stuck in this awful position where we have the world's worst unemployment rate on record, where our youth uptake is if anything, getting even worse. We have to look at the structural factors. Minister Thulisani Nxesi is the Minister of Employment and Labour. And I think that there's an important story to tell looking through his career. He was at SATU and was the head of SATU when that teachers' trade union increased its membership by an order of magnitude. At the same time, we saw a decrease in the performance of public schooling to the position where South Africa became the world's worst public school system, as described by The Economist. The effective pass rate going from grade 1 all the way to matric, tracking all the people who drop out, is only about 5% for mathematics. So the fact that our public school system has basically completely fallen apart with a few exceptions is one important explainer of structural unemployment, low skills, low employment. A second is the red tape that's been brought into play. Thulisani Nxesi, when he came into the ministerial position, ushered into law Cyril Ramaphosa's brainchild at NEDLAC when he was deputy president, which is the minimum wage rate. Now, I've written for the Financial Mail and the Daily Maverick the absurd fact that we have the world's highest minimum wage relative to the median wage. That basically means half of South Africans technically earn less than they're allowed to earn by law. This has not had the impact of those people actually being driven out of work by the police, because the police aren't that mad. But it does have the impact that major employers don't bring on new staff at a competitive rate. Instead, they find other automated ways, for example, to get the job done. So that kind of red tape is devastating. So are the race laws, which move people around like pawns on a board, or jelly babies in some kind of child's play, where the actual merit and value add prospect of an employee is not put first, but instead superficial and irrelevant characteristics to do with their pigment are given primary concern. And again, it's not just my point of view. When the Institute conducts polls, 80% of people say that jobs should be appointed by merit rather than through some kind of black first, for example, policy. And of course, we should always be mindful that we have gotten to the stage where quotas are now explicitly punishing black women in certain sectors. So anyone can find themselves on the wrong end of the stick. But from a labor market perspective, the upshot is an inefficient market, which is not growing. And really, David, the short way to wrap it all up is to look at GDP. South Africa added roughly 3 million jobs in 6 years from 2003 to 2009. And in that period, GDP growth was pushing on around 5%. When productivity increases faster than the population is expanding, then unemployment goes down and employment goes up. It's as simple as that. But since then, South Africa's GDP has stayed flat. In real per capita terms, our GDP today is lower than it was in 2009, 2010. And that explains basically why the unemployment line keeps stretching out and why it would stretch today at social distancing of 1 meter all the way from Cape Town to St. Petersburg.
Gabriel Crouse, thank you very much. Let's hand over to you, our audience. Why do you think unemployment is so stubbornly high in South Africa? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And for more insight and analysis from us at the CRA team, you might want to consider becoming a client of the Center for Risk Analysis. We have a range of reports and data and risk alerts that will help you to navigate through the uncertainty of South Africa. There's a link in the description below where you can find out more information. My name is David Ansara. This is the CRA. Until next time, take care.